welcome back of another episode of Let's Talk Real. I'm Ysmaine Domiciano, real estate broker of Next Home Dream Seekers Realty, and here with me is Carlos Wejebe with My City Landing. How are you, Carlos?
Hey, Nini, good, and you?
Good. We were just before starting live, we were just talking about how people get our names incorrectly, and here I was saying his name incorrect. So for everyone, it's Ysmaine and Carlos Wejebe.
That's right. It's not
the British version. No, that's awesome. So today, this topic is actually a very fun topic for both of us because that's one of our passions and something that we really want to make sure everybody gets to understand and get into it because there's so much potential. And that is, drum roll please, escape the 9-to-5, build wealth and passive income through real estate. And that's kind of what we're helping people on a daily basis, to get out of the rental and become a landlord, or at least have your own home to pass on and build that wealth and pass on to your families. So this is a big one. I feel like a lot of people need to understand
that there is so much.
What is that?
It's going to be a good one.
Yeah. And
they're all good, but it's going to be really good.
It will be really good. People need to understand that there's so much more than just okay, I bought a home, but what does that mean? What can you do with it? How much more can you gain from it? So we want to try to get into that and really expand your mind when it comes to real estate. And maybe you're going to start investing in real estate yourself more than just buying and selling, right? So before we get into it, per usual, we're going to have our myth of the day. And this one is actually related to today's topic. Now it's not a good time to invest. So I want to start, and you can add on. Yeah, Brett. Anytime is a good time to invest. Doesn't matter what the market is. A good buy doesn't have to do with the price range or the interest rate. A good buy, there's so many different factors that play into it, like your potential cash flow, or for real estate is the long game. So what you have to
strategy.
Right, what's your strategy and how long are you going to hold that for? Is that your forever home? Either way, sometimes it's not just about how much you paid for and what your interest rate is what can that turn for you in the future, right? It's a long-term game. And do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you pretty much nailed it. I mean, you're right. I would say that it's all about your exit strategy. It might not be a good cash flow, but if you're going to, for example, say flip it, then you're going to make a decent enough margin on it.
Yeah. It's all about the strategy, the vision, what your goals are, and that's going to determine whether or not it's a good buy or not. Not necessarily right now or a year from now or 5 years from now. One saying that I saw, which I don't even know who came up with it, but it's about this myth. So don't wait to buy and wait.
That's a good one.
That's the best way to describe investing in real estate. You can steal it. I stole it. I don't know who wrote it, but that's what we're going with. And that's a really good summarized description of investing in real estate. Don't wait to buy and wait. And that's how we're going to start today's episode, which is super exciting. Again, escape the 9-to-5, build wealth and passive income through real estate. Now, let's describe what is financial freedom, because I think to escape your 9-to-5, that's what we want to try to get to, right? The financial freedom. But what does that mean? Do you want to kind of get started on that with us, Carlos?
Yeah, so financial freedom is kind of not having to worry too much about your 9-to-5, having some
enough income.
Yeah, some passive income, that will allow you not to have to worry about your bills and allow you to do things that you enjoy more. It's not necessarily being rich. It's just, living the life that you live without having to worry about when my paycheck hits because I have to pay this bill.
Yeah. And I feel like one good way to explain this is waking up and doing what you want instead of having to do something that you don't want, right? in order to be able to just go by the day and live your life.
You're full of nuggets today.
I know, right? I'm like, why?
You're on a
I
roll.
worked it out this morning. I woke up, I'm like, no, today is the day. Brain is working. No, but yeah, it's true. It's just,
I like it.
not having to worry about your bills. It's really knowing that there's something in the back end kind of running where everything that you need to pay for that month is kind of taken care of. And that's, I think, the financial freedom.
Or at least half of it, or a decent portion of it, A
decent portion. That way, when you're working, even if your job that you want to do is not necessarily what you like, bringing back enough income, but you're doing because you want to, not because you have to. Right. And then knowing that you have enough coming passively to you, like passive income is the key for financial freedom. It's having enough kind of going on the back end that is sufficient to fulfill your obligations monthly. And then what you do to work is really just for fun or, keeping you busy. And that is the true beauty of financial freedom for sure. So getting into it further then. So why real estate? Why do you think real estate is a powerful wealth builder tool? I think it's safe to say that it's not by coincidence that about 90% of the millionaires are investing in real estate, right? So
absolutely,
it's a proven tool. It's a stable investment. And again, it's all about the long term. It's always long term. So people need to understand that it doesn't matter if the market is up or down, or if it crashes. If you buy real estate, you are kind of guaranteed that asset because you have an asset to back up. Right. And if it's down, don't sell. If it's up, you can think about it. So that's the beauty of it. Do you want to complement to it?
Yes, I would say, there's different aspects of real estate. Number one is, like your cash flow is one of them. So like what's coming in to help you supplement your income from work. I would say, number two is appreciation. For example, you buy a house, say in 2022 for $295,000. And now it's 2025, and now the house is worth, upwards of $450,000. Mm-hmm. Well, now you can take money from that house. You can use the equity from that house, and then go and buy something else. Rent this house. The rent is going to cover the mortgage, and the line of credit or whatever vehicle you use, for financing, and then you can go out and keep doing it. So it's what you said. It's not about right now. It's about the long term. It's little by little. How far can you get, I would say. And then you always have, your tax benefits because, you can write off your interest, you can write off your depreciation, so that stuff also kind of helps you, when you're looking at the, at kind of saving some money. And then the other great thing about it is that if you, instead, like for example, let's say if you're buying a house and you fix it, and instead of selling it and having a tax implication, you can borrow against it, pull out some of the equity that you've built into it, and now you don't have to pay taxes on it, but you made money and you can keep doing it.
Yes, yeah. And there's also strategies, like more in-depth strategies for people that are getting into real estate. Let's say they managed to get their first property and they are flipping it, selling it, didn't live in a property, and also didn't keep it for 2 years. So there's the capital gains tax, which is massive. So in order to get away from paying those, and if it's a person that's continuing to invest, like using the funds to get the next, you can do a 1031 exchange.
Yep, that's correct.
As an option. Yeah, so you use the same funds of that sale and put it right into another purchase. Do you remember what the timeline is for the 1031? Like how?
Yeah, so the 1031, you have 45 days to identify the property and 6 months to close on it.
Oh, okay. So it's fairly large amount of time, but 45 to find it.
45 days to find it.
Gotcha. And then to close on that, you still have 6 months.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, so yeah, that's definitely an amazing option to kind of take away the big taxes that can be involved with, buying and selling real estate.
Yep.
But there's other things, and we're going to discuss some, creative ideas too, while we're going through today's
creative
episode.
Financing.
Yeah. And I mean, watch our episode, our part 2 of Cracking the Code, because we did speak to a lot of like non-conforming creative financing options, and some of them were very key to investing. But some things that we can talk about it today is other options that might not even involve a bank, right? Because there are options out there that can be used as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So okay, that you did mention, and I want to kind of go back a little bit about appreciation. So the appreciation portion of real estate, I think, is the biggest benefit someone can have, and that's the biggest reason why someone should stop paying, a lease, a rental, and actually become the owner of a property. Because over a long time, a period of time, there's so many benefits that you can take advantage of from these appreciation. So you mentioned the line of credit. That's one option. There's the home equity loan, which is like a fixed second mortgage option that you can use for anything. You can use not just to buy other properties, but you could renovate their own property. Like, let's say it's your own primary residence and you need to finish the basement, or you want to install a pool, or you just want to pay down your debt. You can get a home equity loan for that as well, or a line of credit. They're kind of similar, but they're different, strategies behind it.
Yeah. Or you want to just renovate the inside of your home and, help you appreciate that way as well. Like redo your kitchen, redo your bathroom, maybe add a bedroom, stuff like that also.
Yeah. Instead of getting a personal loan and paying 20% on it, you can just do that. And usually it's very similar to the rates to actually purchase a home. So you're saving a ton of money, and it's your own money, really, technically. So it's a great way to do it. And then the last thing that you can also think about, it's, towards retirement. Let's say you have your primary residence there that you own your whole life, and now you either have a very, very minimal mortgage or, no mortgage at all. You can do what's called a reverse mortgage and then pay yourself a retirement, monthly stipend from the equity of your home to kind of supplement your, monthly expenses. So if, let's say, your Social Security is not the best, and we honestly, we shouldn't be even counting on that nowadays. Might not be there when I retire, so who knows?
Definitely not.
Your home, it's like, could be your retirement, and people don't think about it that way, but it can be. And if you have
your home could be your Social Security or your 401k.
And a much, much nicer one, and you still can stay with you. I know it's just that it's going to have a balance by the time you pass away, but that can still be within the family, or it can be sold upon, your departure. And then the family can still split the remainder equity of that property.
Yep.
Yeah, so there's so many ways to use real estate, and I feel like everybody should own a home, no matter what. And for those of you out there that are renting, keep in mind, you are paying a mortgage, just not your mortgage, paying someone else's mortgage.
And if you're worried about the rates, you're paying 100% interest rate if you're renting.
100% interest rate, and you're paying a mortgage, it's not yours.
Yep.
So keep that in mind when you're renting. And talk to us, because you might be closer than you think to actually being able to start your real estate, endeavors.
Absolutely.
So keep that in mind. You might be much
people
closer.
think they don't qualify, and then you talk to them and you're like, oh my God, you're so ready. And they're like, what?
You're ready right now. Like,
yeah.
And then they think like, oh, I need so much money. And there's so many good options out there. And if you are a person that is, a decent score, and by a decent score, I don't mean like 700s. It's just, mid 60s. You should be able to qualify for grants that can help you, kind of help reduce your costs. So you could be ready. Could be ready right now. So think about that. Lots to think about. Now let's go to segment 3, which is ways to get started, even if you are new. Okay, I'll let you start on this one too. I think that's your game. And I'll compliment.
Yeah, so even like if you're a first time home buyer, you can start with either, buying a home just for you and your family, or you can start with a 2 unit, a 3 unit, or 4 unit. There are down payment assistance programs right now that will allow you to buy a 2 unit. So you're starting off the bat with a 2 unit. So it might not cover all of your mortgage, but it'll cover like half of your mortgage maybe.
Yeah.
And then say you're paying $1,300 a month right now in rent, or $1,500, because rent's pretty high right now.
Yeah.
And let's say the mortgage on that property is $2,000. Well, if you're charging somebody $1,000 for the unit, or $1,200, now you only have to come up with $800. Now you can take that extra $500 and put it towards something you want to do, or put it towards paying down the house quicker. I mean, the opportunities are really endless. And then when you get into the 3s and the 4 units, it's even nicer. Like, you can buy something where you don't have to pay anything and potentially make $1,000 a month.
Yes.
Yeah, you live for free and you make $1,000 a month. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, in my opinion.
No, and the thing that people need to understand too, and especially the first-time home buyers or even second-time home buyers, when you're looking into a multifamily, a bank will take into account that potential income that is going to
rental income. Yep. 75% of the rental income will count towards your income to help you qualify for your debt to income ratio.
So now you can qualify for more than you thought you could, because some multifamilies tend to be, especially 3-4 units, they tend to be more expensive. And then you're like, oh, I'm only approved for, I don't know, $250, and this unit is $350. But now you might be able to qualify because the bank takes into account that potential income that might be coming through. And then you can actually afford to get it and still be moving in with no money out of pocket potentially if all the units are rented, right? So, I mean, there's so much that can be done, especially when you're younger and willing to live on a unit shared with other people, right? On multifamilies, that is the best way to start. If you are 20s, I mean, this is for you. It might be harder for a family with 3 kids to buy a multifamily and be living in 1 unit. I can.
If you're single and starting out, there's no better time.
No brainer. You should definitely be thinking.
Or even like a couple, that's starting out, don't have any kids yet.
Oh, I had 2 couples actually that had that mindset, and I love it. They were willing to just, let's get a 2-bedroom unit on a multifamily property and just stay there for 1 year. And really, that's it. That's really it. You stay there for 1 year, and you can still buy your next property using FHA as well with 3.5% down, and then get another multifamily and living there for a year. Now you already have 2 multifamilies making up, I don't know, depending. They're both 4 units. You could have 8 units generating income for you within 2 purchases. And then you can buy your home.
You can only do one FHA. You can only do one FHA on the first one, because unless you're moving 100 miles away, they won't let you use the rental income. So the first one can be FHA, and usually what I do
would have to be conventional then.
Conventional, but what you do is you have that year, and that year we can help you, get your credit to where it needs to be, so the next year when you're going for the next one, you can go conventional, no problems.
Yeah, that's true. There he goes. So, and there are conventionals 3% down. So if your credit is actually decent, you might be able to qualify, which is cheaper down payment than an FHA at 3.5%. So,
but if it's multi-unit, you have to put 5% down.
You do?
On a conventional.
Okay, there he goes. That's why we have the expert here. So I don't say stuff that is wrong. Yeah, so there's so many options for you guys. You could potentially be on your dream home in 3 years, and have multiple incomes coming through with multifamilies. So very, very
good.
And
the cool thing is that as long as you're claiming the income on your taxes, you can use the income from the property you're vacating to help you buy the next one. So like the first one, you have to report rental income for 2 years, because if not, they just let you wash what's called the PITI, which is the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So on the first one, you have to report taxes for 2 years, sure that you're making money, of course, on the rental.
Yeah.
And then they'll let you use that. And then moving forward on all of them, you'll be able to just keep using and keep piling up all the units that all the properties that you're leaving. You can keep piling them up and using more income, so that, like you said, in 3 to 4 years, you can have your dream home and really the tenants are more than likely paying for most of it.
Yeah, exactly. And then in that period of time, you'd be surprised. You might be able to even have the first initial property paid down within like 5 years, depending on what income coming through versus your mortgage is like. So it shouldn't take that long. That's when we use the snowball effect and put everything that is, profit in a way to pay down the first property. Once that's fully paid off and is generating 100%, income, then you put it towards the second, and so on and so forth. That way, now you can fully qualify for your dream home with no previous mortgage whatsoever. And it shouldn't take, a lifetime like some people think. It can be done in very few years if you are being smart about it.
Yes.
Yeah, and then we have the fix and flip options as well. If you are looking to get started into like real estate, but maybe not a first-time home buyer, you don't want to necessarily be living in the property. You just want to come in, renovate, resell. There are options available for that, not necessarily using FHA options, right? These would be required to be conventional with a larger down payment. Do you know any special programs for fix and flip?
Yeah, so for the conventional, you don't want to do fix and flip. You're going to go with the non-QM type deals, because you're going to, depending on your experience, of course, you may be able to get, finance 90% of the property and get 100% of the renovation cost. Or, if you're starting out, you might get like 80% of the purchase price you can finance, and 80% of the renovation they'll give you. You know what I mean? So you're only coming out of pocket with 20% of the purchase and 20% of the renovation. So it all depends on the investor's experience, credit, has a lot to do with it also. Good credit, good experience. You're always going to get the most favorable terms. But it's like you said, like maybe, renting right now isn't the way to go and you want to flip. Well, you can do that. You can buy a house, say for $150,000. Say you drop, 20 or 30,000 into it, and then you get out of it, and you're at, you're getting out at $250,000. Well, you spent $180,000 plus interest. Say you spent about $190,000. You're still coming out pretty strong on the way out, and then you can do a 1031 exchange into the next one.
Exactly.
And then once you have 2 or 3 flips under your belt, now you start getting more favorable terms, and you're financing more, and you're bringing less out of pocket. And by doing that, you can have multiple projects working at the same time also.
Yes. Yeah. And then I feel like some of the drawbacks for some people, especially when it comes to rentals, it's like, I don't know how to manage a rental. Is it scary to have to deal with people? How do I collect rentals? How do I keep up with the maintenance? So my response to that is that you can be as hands-on as you want, and you can be as hands-off as you want. You could be the type of landlord that is right there, like literally fixing the plumbing yourself, or you could be the landlord that just collects a check monthly. Because there are property management companies that can do basically everything for you, from maintenance of the property to collecting checks to screening the tenants. And I mean,
getting rid of tenants that aren't paying and putting new tenants in.
Eviction process, which can be a nightmare. But I feel like a good screening kind of facilitates avoiding that too. And you as the new owner landlord should definitely be very, very strict on your guidelines for screening, especially in the beginning when you're inexperienced, because you want to have really good tenants on your property so you don't, struggle with lack of payment, having to evict someone, destroying the property.
Yeah, I was going to say, somebody's going to take care of your property too, because if, it doesn't help you if you made a few $1,000s, over years, but then when you go in, now you have to spend $20,000 to renovate because they destroyed it, Now
all your property's gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but again, it's still a great investment, because despite of all that, let's say you didn't make money that year from the income because the renovation costs more, you still have an asset to go back to, and that asset is still appreciating. So the beauty of real estate is that you earn different ways, right? You have your cash flow, and you have your appreciation, and then you have your long term, because you have an asset in hands that increases your net worth. So it's a triple gain there, a triple winner.
Right. And then the other cool thing is that, even, when you have to renovate, because the tenant destroyed it or whatever, that's a pretty big tax deduction then that year also, so that helps out with the income.
For sure. Yeah, make sure you do have a good accountant too to understand and get the best benefit of purchasing properties or reselling a property, because there are a lot of tax advantages to buying and selling real estate, but you need to have a good accountant too. So make sure you're touching base with someone that understands and can do the best for you in those terms as well. Okay, so next segment is overcoming common fears. And I feel like that's a big one, because what is paralyzing people from buying a home? It's, yes, they may not be ready or not feel they are ready, but it's really the fear of like, I'm buying a house. Like that seems unattainable for a lot of people. And it's so easy in a way to get to become a homeowner. And there's a lot of little fears and common misconceptions that kind of keeps people from even looking into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy how people, at first are afraid, and they're like, oh my God, like this is such a big step, how am I going to be able to do this? I'm not rich. I can't do this. Only rich people can own homes, and stuff like that. But once they buy a home and that switch flips, now they're like, all right, when can I buy my next one?
Yeah.
Like, hey, I know I did this right now. Now how can I get my next one?
Yes.
I tell a lot of my first time home buyers, they're like, all right, well, I'm gonna take the plunge. So I want to make sure I get something that I absolutely love, that checks off all my boxes. And I'm like, hey, listen, this is just your first one, okay? This is not your forever home. You're gonna be in this home for maybe a year or two, while you restabilize, save up a little bit more again, and then we'll go to the next one. And then this one is gonna generate income that's gonna help you pay for a home that you like more down the line. It's better than, what I tell them is, hey, listen, this is better than paying rent. Okay, think that you're renting from yourself. If you don't love this home, you're renting from yourself for a year or so, and then you're getting to another house that you're going to rent from yourself. That's going to be a little bit nicer, but it's going to be a little bit higher rent. Until eventually you're going to be like, oh my God, I love this house. Like don't focus on
the perfect.
I can't find my perfect home.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest. I'm not gonna say mistake, but the most common feature of all buyers coming in to buy a home for the first time. Maybe it's just that they have this idea of this house has to be perfect, and they have to be there.
I'm never buying another one.
I never buy another one. And then I can tell you from all the clients in the last 8 years that I worked with, all of them are looking into getting an upgrade. So
yeah,
it's what it is.
Come in less than a year.
First, second, third, and yes, maybe you are getting your forever home. But all my first time home buyers, 9 times out of 10, they already reached out, or they're thinking, or they're considering in the next year or so to get an upgrade, and that's just what it is. So understand, the house that you're getting for the first time is not going to be perfect because you are not prepared fully. Maybe you are, good for you, but majority of people are not prepared to just buy the forever home straight out of the bat. They're not,
And some reach out to us in less than a year.
So come on, I have a timeline of 3 months. Can you make my dream home happen? I'm like, we're gonna try. For sure. But yeah, so I think overcoming fears. I think the most common fear is really I don't have money. I don't have money to buy a house. It costs thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to buy a house. And people would be surprised. Yeah, that's another big prayer. People would be surprised on how little money out of pocket sometimes. And I mean, because, it has to be the perfect scenario, but people can buy a home.
Stars have to align.
It's I've had people make money on the table. I had people just break even on the table, pay the deposit, nothing else. And then I had people pay $80,000, on the purchase, but depends on their situation in particular. Can you buy a house with less than 10,000? Yes. The answer is yes. Can you buy a house with less than 5,000? Oh yeah. Carlos and I have been making miracles here. Like, we can make it happen.
Yeah.
But again, it needs to, of course, you need to fit certain, boxes. And if we can try to put you in those boxes, we definitely will, right? There are grants available. There's different types of financing that maybe don't require down payment, like we mentioned, the USDA, the VA, and then some special conventional programs that are 1% down. So there are options out there. It's just a matter of like, can you qualify for them? And if you can, oh yeah, we can make it happen with very little to non-money out of pocket, right?
Absolutely.
But you need to come to us so we can kind of see, analyze your situation, verify your profile, your financial profile that we call it, to see where you stand. And then we're going to guide you, like, look, if you want to get this price range of a home and you only have this much out of pocket, this is what we need to do to get you there, right? Or maybe you need to save a little more, or maybe you need to work on your credit so we can get you approved for this grant. So there's so many different things we can do, but you need to overcome the fear or even coming to talk to us about it, right, first. Not having enough money, 9 times out of 10 is not necessarily the biggest problem we have at hand. There might be other factors that you don't even know that we can kind of help you correct and get you in a home much sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I was just gonna give you an example. I was just working on a loan before we started this, and the client has like a 620 something credit score, which isn't bad, because we're going FHA. Mm-hmm. But with like $1,200 out of his pocket, he goes from 620 to like a 690 because of utilization. And now you're talking like, wow, you know what I mean? Like more favorable terms, now you're qualified for down payment assistance, grants, like the whole nine. Wow. Just like people don't think that how much difference $1,000 can do.
Yeah, they would be surprised. And then we can just maybe do that, get them to where they need to be, approve them for a bunch of grants, and they still might not need not even as much money when they're ready to actually get started.
Absolutely. Sometimes they say, oh, I only have 15,000, or I only have 10,000. Mm-hmm. But like, for example, in this case, he only had, I think it was like 10,000 or something. Well, if we go from a 620 to a 690, now you can get DPA and you might not even need the full 10,000.
Yeah, exactly. And you have seen that happen over and over again.
Exactly.
Multiple times. Yeah, I think the other fear, I'm clicking on the wrong one. So the other fear of people, it's really like the idea of, well, now is not the right time. The market is not where it should be. The interest rates are high.
I'm waiting for 2008 again to happen.
Yeah, like, no, guys, no. So in regards to fears, I think there's just so many things that come to people's minds, but really like the right time is when it's the right time for you. Right. That is really what it is. So if now you're like in the city that you want to be, you're working in the area that you want to be working, anything is better than you renting. Because renting, again, you're paying someone else's mortgage and you're doing that at 100% interest. So don't do that. Like, at least look into the options of buying, surpass that fear of like the unknown, and look into getting qualified. Because if you're not ready now, you could be ready in 2 months, you could be ready in 6 months, but it's still, at least you're going to work towards getting to the point where you're paying yourself, your rental, you're paying yourself monthly basis, building equity.
You're your own landlord.
Yeah. And people are scared sometimes to even own a home because like, oh, what if something breaks? Now I have to do everything. I'm like, well, yeah, you're a homeowner, but at least you're building, equity and appreciation, and you can use that home as an asset in so many different ways. Like we mentioned here, it could be a line of credit, it could be your own personal bank, it could be your own personal retirement account. So keep those things in mind when you're considering buying a house, and overcome those fears and get started sooner rather than later, because that's really what comes down to.
The more you wait, the more rent you'll pay.
And the more you wait, the more expensive it gets. Like seriously, the market never stops going up naturally. So just get started sooner rather than later. So this one I clicked before by mistake. It's building towards financial freedom. So when you're thinking about getting started in real estate, it's all about what you own and how much is coming back. And going back to the initial of this episode, it's building that passive income so you can have financial freedom, right? So it's one property at a time. You don't have to, in order to become wealthy, I have to have 10 properties and I have to make it happen this year. If you have that mindset, you're never going to make it happen because it's going to become overwhelming and it's unattainable.
It's one door at a time.
Yes, one at a time. Like even if you're buying a property for yourself, living in it for a year, then you buy another property, leaving that property for a year, and then you go like that. At least you're putting one property in your portfolio per year, and in 5 years you have 5, and that should already probably be, fulfilling your expenses monthly. Then you have, if not, then you need to talk to us so we can kind of give you some smart ways to kind of make that happen.
We need to talk about budgeting.
Yeah, budgeting and actually paying off the first mortgage, doing the snowball effect, which, that's what the millionaires did in the past, and that's what they continue to do. And you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. It's all about, little by little, you start with one door where you're making anywhere between, $300 and $700 a month, on one door, and then you decide next year, hey, listen, like you can start with a 2-unit and say, let me see how it starts out, right? And then in a year, you're like, oh wow, I made so much money. Okay, now I want to try a 3-unit, and then now I want to try a 4-unit, and little by little, and door by door, now you have, 2,000 coming in, 3,000 coming in, 5,000 coming in, and then. And like you said, you use that money to pay off the first property that you bought, and then once all of that is done, then you put it on the second, and you put it on the third, and before you know it, you're a millionaire.
Yeah, and that gets us to this next segment, which is the generational wealth and leaving a legacy to your family. So really, that's like, I think anybody's goal is to leave something behind that is helping our kids, to have a better future, and that's kind of like that's the type of snowball effect that we want to cause. It's really the leaving something behind for our family to continue to live freely, without having financial burdens to worry about, not having to worry about college, and paying for it because you have enough coming in. Imagine being able to gift your kid a house. Like this, there you go, I'll give you this house as your first rental income.
Right, or imagine having like so many doors that you can replace your income forever. You know what I mean? Like your kids will keep living the same lifestyle, you know what I mean? Or have access to the same quality of life that you provided for them while you were working, and busting your hump, and maybe you can retire early because you can replace your job with this passive income that you've built up little by little,
and actually enjoy your family and your kids while they're still kids. Yes, and again, this does not have to take that much time. We're talking 5, 10, 15 years. What's that when people are hoping to retire at 65? Like that's
you can get out at 50, or if you're in your 20s now when you do this, by 40 years old.
20s, if I 30? Knew better in my 20s, I would be retired right now. I would have retired and have just rental properties and enjoying the life of like doing the flips for fun, or like
sitting in a beach in Brazil, just taking in the sun.
Helping, enjoying lifetime, like traveling. I love to travel. And,
absolutely.
We're kind of tied down because we have, our things that we have to do and keep the ball rolling. But yeah, that's the goal, is just providing that to our future generations. And that brings us to the last segment, which is you don't have to do this alone, guys. You don't have to reinvent the wheel or figure out things by yourself. I know that there's so much information online, to the point that becomes overwhelming to
Yep.
any one person. Yes, you can become an expert on something if you just go online, but it can be overwhelming, and you could be looking into informations that are deceiving or not correct, or at least not fully correct, or you might misinterpret something in there. So don't think you have to do it alone or figure it out on yourself. When you're dealing with real estate, you always have a team. You're going to have a real estate agent. You're going to have a loan officer like Carlos. You're going to have a title company. You're going to have maybe possibly contractors, inspectors, appraisers. There's a whole team of people that is involved in a transaction, and the main two people that are going to be holding your hands are really the real estate agent and the loan officer. So just know that people like us, Carlos and I, we are going to be right there with you. If your dream is to develop your wealth through real estate, even if it's just a one house or it's two houses or multifamilies or a whole apartment building, no matter what it is, we can definitely help you. It's a lot of experience here, years on the real estate side and years on the financing side. So just know we're here to support you every step of the way.
Yeah, and a lot of the times people come to us and they really don't know. For example, like say they want to get into flipping, but they really don't know like a good contractor. Well, since we work with so many people, so many investors, we have good contractors that we could like recommend to you. Handyman, for if something breaks down in one of your tenants' properties, inspectors, insurance, you name it, anything that's related to this, we have people that we can recommend to you, so that you don't feel like you need to figure it all out by yourself.
Yeah, and even like credit repair, things that are related to you getting ready to even buy, and then post buy, and then during buy. Like we have list of services providers that we can recommend, people that we already know, like, and trust, and have seen their work. So even though you could find something online, just know that you can make recommendations of people that we already know that do a good job. So it saves you time as well.
Absolutely. That way you don't have to make a mistake going off of Google or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I said. Can you find the information online? Heck yeah, you can find information online. But you can find too much information to the point that it's like, where do I even, what?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's funny because I get clients all the time coming to me and like, oh, I read about this type of loan. And then I read about this. And then they're like completely confused because one thing doesn't click with the other. And I'm like, oh, well, no, let's just come back. Forget what you read. Let's just start from here. Because it is so confusing. There's just too much about real estate everywhere.
Yeah, or you get clients that, they're taking a dabble, with the market and stuff, and they're like, oh, well, I heard this news, so I think it's gonna go down, and then
I know.
Don't do it. Listen to the professional.
Hold tight. Yeah, working with a professional is definitely key. And even if you feel like you already have some understanding in real estate because you bought 1-2 properties, does not make you a professional investor. So you still should have someone's expertise in those fields and on financing and real estate, to help you find a property that makes sense, because you make money when you buy. That's the rule of thumb for any investor. It should be anyway. You make money when you buy. If you do a wrong buy, and I don't mean price, again, terms, what's the outcome, what's the strategy, everything that's involved, what kind of financing you're doing, those are going to be the determining factors of whether that's a good buy or not. So you make money when you buy. Then when you sell, it's just a confirmation of your, planning.
Another nugget. Man,
oh
you're on a roll.
Today's the day, I tell you.
Wow.
And I think that's it. Unless you have some any nuggets to share too.
No, I think you pretty much covered everything,
Me too. Yeah, you did a great job explaining on the financing side. So I feel like this was an awesome episode. Kind of gave me ideas of things that we can even further explore in different episodes. So
absolutely,
chat about that. And for you guys at home, stay tuned. If you like this type of content, please let us know. And remember to like, subscribe, share, comment and let us know. Follow, yeah, all the different kinds. And let us know what you would like to hear from us next. We always like trying to come up with interesting subjects and things that you actually want to hear about. So hearing from you guys is awesome. So please let us know. Stay tuned for the next one. Thanks so much, Carlos. And thank you everyone for watching. I'll see you next.